Green Lantern, the punching bag for heavy hitters in the DC universe. You want to show how powerful a new bad guy is? Check out a couple of lanterns. They're a dime a dozen. You know it's canon that the ring is the most powerful weapon in all of the universe. Well, apparently other characters don't realize that either because, ugh. Still, when the Green Lanterns aren't made to be jobbed out to the big guy to make them look strong, they're pretty awesome. Their power set is cool, the way the Lantern lore works is cool. There are plenty of interesting stories and plenty of different characters that use the ring. Of course, when it comes to the main characters, we tend to focus on the humans, because, relatability. And among all the human lanterns, which one of them is the most unlucky out of the lot? Well, actually all of them, but one I feel is just a tad bit more unlucky than the rest of them. This video is going to be talking about the lanterns briefly, focusing on some of their best and worst moments. Now let's begin with the original Green Lantern, probably also one of the lesser known lanterns as well. Spoilers for Green Lantern stuff, obviously.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Alan Scott was created before the modern lore of the Green Lantern Corps was formed, which made his origin story a bit confusing afterwards. But still, back in July 10th, 1940s, Alan Scott was a simple railroad engineer with the help of a sentient green flame. Don't ask us the whole thing. He finds a magical ancient piece of metal and forges it into a ring, a Green Lantern ring. It's technically not officially a Green Lantern ring in later continuities because it acts differently and is special and has magical properties, but he's still the first Green Lantern. Throughout the 40s, well, the real 40s, there was a war going on, so he fought evil. Then in 1949, his run ended as All American Comics turned into All American Western, to cater to the gunslinging audience, which only lasted a few years before changing into All American Men of War, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, due to the cancellation of superhero comics, Allen was then laid into limbo for the next 13 years, which gave time for the Green Lanterns to become revamped. And now, unfortunately, that also meant that Alan Scott no longer existed because he no longer fit the mode of the universe. However, he did come back, and they made it so that he lived in another universe inside the DC multiverse. There in Earth 2, he became a reoccurring character for the next couple of decades, in full comic runs as a member of the Justice Society. Misfortune strikes him again, as was the end of the DC Silver Age, ends Alan Scott's entire existence, as in last days of the Justice Society, he is quote-unquote forever trapped in an extra-dimensional realm. Thankfully, he was popular enough to be brought back to the limelight in the 90s, though he lost his ring and got the Miss Marvel live-action treatment. That's rough, buddy. But again, you can't beat the classics, and he finally got back his ring and his old name in 2003. And since then on, he became a veteran member and appeared in the popular Justice Society of America series as a reoccurring member. But then New 52 came along, and goodbye to Alan Scott again. There's a new Alan Scott, and he exists in another universe, where he this time is young, which is sort of losing the main point of Alan Scott that we've known for the last few decades. And also, he's young, and he's not in World War II anymore. And also, he's lost his cape. Evidently, this new form was not very popular as he did come back through the Doomsday Clock event as the regular classic Alan Scott. So, Alan suffered from the misfortune of being in and out of canonicity due to his original style not exactly clashing well with the rest of the Lantern lore, but when actually used, he is usually shown to be a solid veteran that inspired heroes of the future like Superman and Batman. So can't be too unlucky. Besides, he was also able to have two children that became superheroes in their own right and appears in the comics, so he's got a legacy and everything. Also, another tick on his lucky side is that he was made retroactively gay. Obviously, in 40s, you're probably not going to write a gay character. However, a closeted gay person born in the early 20th century who actually even raised himself a family makes a lot of sense. It happens in real life. So, it makes sense how he could steal the title of the first gay superhero. Hey, and he wears that badge with pride. And why not? He's been around for a long time. He deserves it. But again, because of Alan Scott's original creation and how his story is kind of weird when it comes to the rest of the Green Lantern Corps, he's not often used that much, which, you can't blame. His entire existence as a Green Lantern has always been a bit of an outlier, but he's still treated like a Hall of Fame legend within the Justice Society of America. In fact, the whole thing is meant to be something that the Justice League aspires to become, so he has plenty of moments of glory to be proud of.
I'm touching myself tonight.
And what about the main Green Lantern DC universe, Hal Jordan? Well, he's easily the most fortunate unfortunate one with the group, being the Green Lantern that everything basically revolves around. Of course, that does mean he goes through many trials and hardships, and at times are treated as the butt of the joke, like in the New 52 and the old DC animated movies before the reset.
Green Lantern's got this!
Also, being Green Lantern means by default, he'll have to do a lot of jobbing to other heavy hitters. But still, he's the one that gets the main highlights. The others call him the human Green Lantern leader, and they named a run called Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps for a reason. Vance nicknamed it for Hal and Pals because that's what it was. Hal Jordan and friends go on an adventure. Been in the most amount of different media, paired with other leaguers the most, star of our own cartoon series, and when it comes to live action movies featuring Green Lanterns and main characters, he's easily got the best one so far, which isn't saying much because he's only got Guy Gardner to compare it with, and man, that's not great. And besides, even after James Gunn's TV show of Lanterns comes out, the Green Lantern movie will still be the most popular live-action film version. Hal Jordan cannot be said to be the unluckiest Green Lantern because he, at the end of the day, is the star of the show. He is the Green Lantern. When you think of Green Lantern, you're most likely gonna think of him. Then what about guy number 3, Guy Gardner?
Because we are also of the cloth.
Who, like Alan Scott, carries a few different origin stories, though him coming from an abusive upbringing never changed. Sometimes he's an ex-police officer, other times he's a well-educated man with 2 degrees and is a physical therapist. However, the personality of Guy Gardner was quite a curious one. He started off as a rather polite and soft-spoken guy who was just ready to do the right thing and be a good guy. Set up as Earth's second Green Lantern in case something happened to Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner was a bit boring. He was just a sidekick for Hal, and it seemed that the writers agreed because they then hit him with a bus, mainly so that the number 2 title could go on to Jon Stewart due to blaxploitation at the time. Unlucky to be a victim of blaxploitation, I suppose, but eventually he did get better with a new ring and a love interest. Then he died. Well, actually, a battery power blew up in his face and left him in a coma for years because the writers really didn't like him, I guess. Finally, in Crisis on Infinite Earths, he awoke, and he had a sudden personality change. Why? Canonically, actual brain damage. That's right, CTE got to Guy Gardner. Talk about unlucky. I mean, like, look at how many concussions Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor receive over the years, yet they're both still considered the 2 smartest men alive. Good news, Hal Jordan at this point was no longer the main Green Lantern, so Guy Gardner was the veteran Green Lantern now, and he became a member of the Justice League International, a very popular series. Then in the 90s he got edgy, but fortunately got better. People don't talk about that a lot. He was also the first Green Lantern to ever be on a live-action movie. Again, people don't talk about that a lot, but, you know, it's still an achievement. Also, Booster Gold kind of screwed him from becoming the first ever Green Lantern, so that's also pretty unlucky. But hey, if he did become the first Green Lantern, it was explained that he would have died, so maybe it was lucky for him. But then, at least he's had plenty of fun runs and used well since his attitude changed, from beginning a Red Lantern and becoming a more well-rounded character, to being part of the Justice League. He has had great moments in other universes as well, from the Injustice comics, both pre and post-death. Aside from Hal Jordan, he was easily the most compelling Green Lantern in that series, and has always been a constant fixture in the Lantern Corps. I mean, there's a reason why he was selected as the first Green Lantern that is introduced to us by James Gunn. He plays an excellent dick to the nice and virtuous Superman, and is an excellent show of the Latin powers, and most iterations treat him pretty well, because you can make him a horrible, disgusting person, because, well, he kind of is, and you can kind of make him a jerk with a heart of gold, because, again, his character makes sense to play that role as well. He's a character out of all of them that's treated with a decent amount of respect. Even his failures are, well, appropriate. You can't call him unlucky because he does his job and he does it well, and there is nothing wrong with how he is treated throughout the comics. So let's move on to the next one. Now, with the way I'm going through Green Lanterns, the logical next step is to talk about Jon Stewart. But, spoilers, I do think he's the most unlucky one out of the group of them, so I will save him for last. So let's move on from Jon Stewart, Kyle Rayner, the fifth one to get the ring in 1994, and at the time he was the youngest person to get the Green Lantern ring. Now, if you know Kyle Rayner and his story arcs, you kind of have to feel like he's pretty damn unlucky when it comes to the comics. He's not appeared much in any live action or film or cartoon series. He's kind of only ever really existed in the comics, which is a shame. He's set up as the most powerful lantern, period. Not just Green Lantern, just the lanterns in general. In many of the major DC events featuring Green Lanterns, had a guy who seems set on taking the mantle of main Green Lantern from Hal Jordan eventually. And aside from a few major storylines, he winds up just being one of Hal's pals. He was also really badly wasted in Injustice, but a lot of other characters were too as well, so, you know. He was the main hero in Blackest Night, yet afterwards... But unfortunately, nothing really came from that afterwards. They kind of just reset him as the younger Green Lantern guy. It also doesn't help that he's forever linked to the fridging trope, as it's named that because he found his girlfriend's stuff inside of the fridge by the bad guy so that he can be angry and try to get revenge. But still, he had plenty of moments to shine and looked to be the next generation's main Green Lantern throughout the 2000s. Still, his time as the #1 Green Lantern seems to have passed, and it's unlikely that he'll ever take up that mantle ever again. Because, you know, Hal Jordan needs to look strong, brother, and he ain't giving up the strap for no man. Still, at least he was pivotal in a very popular event, and has consistently appeared in Green Lantern comics since then, so, he's been given more opportunities than some other Green Lanterns. Next up, let's introduce Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz. They're often paired together because they were introduced in relatively quick succession. Simon coming in 2012 and Jessica being introduced in 2013. As the new Green Lanterns, they're meant to drag in the new generation of readers. These characters have been around long enough to have a few opportunities to shine in the comic book limelight, both being used in various storylines and were the main focus for a while. Though, since Rebirth, they've just become another member of the Green Lantern ensemble. They haven't received any real character assassinations, so it's not too bad, even if they're not used too well. And besides, the Green Lantern comics are good, and they do good things to good comic books, so you know what, it could be way worse. Soldier Mullen, the newest member of the Green Lantern Corps, being made back in 2019 for Infinite Frontiers, and since been part of the Green Lantern runs. A very fun character. A fun character that had a great first debut and is going on strong. Though, these last three that I've mentioned have only had a handful of standout moments compared to others, which makes sense, decades of more comic appearances than they do. And unfortunately, none of the three really had their own specific comic runs. All their appearances had to be shared along with one another. They tend to have to share the title with other Green Lantern or other superheroes. While they're not pushed too much, they still haven't received any real serious character assassinations that made people really give them the ick feeling. At least, not yet. But as of right now, they haven't had any weird retcons, they haven't been erased from existence, so they know what, they're in the clear for receiving the misfortunate title of Unluckiest Green Lantern. Speaking of Unluckiest Green Lanterns, here comes my personal Unluckiest Green Lantern.
I'm a king, not a joker.
Jon Stewart, created for the sole purpose of blaxploitation, which is already not a great start for him. But hey, he managed to eventually shed that weight off him, only to receive a arguably heavier and worse weight. He's had his fair share of the limelight throughout the comics. More than that, he was the face of the Green Lanterns with the Justice League animated series and Justice League Unlimited, which made him really cool and really popular by people. So he was in a major cartoon series that ran for multiple years and probably became ingrained in the minds of many children for multiple years. So how is that unlucky for him? Well, a minor detraction is during the Injustice comic series, while Hal Jordan was obviously the main character with his turn from Green Lantern to Yellow Lantern, and Guy Gardner having a very surprisingly wholesome character arc of being the level-headed guy of the group, and Kyle Rayner unfortunately being killed off like he was nothing, Jon Stewart did play a pretty major role in the Injustice series. However, his major moment was to just be quickly killed off by Sinestro. The Sinestro can trick Hal Jordan and make him believe that Guy Gardner killed Jon Stewart, which then led to Hal Jordan killing Guy Gardner Connor, who the whole time was still trying to talk some sense into him and refused to fight back the entire time. And when it came to original DC animated universe series, he made one appearance that I know of, and his death was rather comical and pathetic.
In blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light!
Jon Stewart got the anticlimactic ending. But hey, while those were bad moments, they're not part of the main comic continuity, and besides, he's coming in a new Lantern show. Other characters have had much worse moments, like, hey, Guy Gardner literally became brain dead for a while. But here's the thing, Jon Stewart hasn't really had many personal featured runs, even despite the fact that he was in a cartoon series and was very popular in it. So, why is that? You see, he unfortunately had a great comic run during the Green Lantern series, which is easily his best comic series in his entire existence. So why is having the best run ever bad? Well, because that's where all his character development and great character defining moments appeared and shaped his character. Why is that bad? Character development and shaping out properly creating a character is a good thing, right? Yes, but it's bad because of the writer who wrote him. Gerard Jones. What's wrong with Gerard Jones? What did he do? Well, in 2016, he was arrested and sentenced to 6 years in prison for owning stuff that contained children that you should not own. Ugh. We know this is true because he pled guilty to it. How much of it was found on him? Was it perhaps, an accidental download or something? Well, maybe if he accidentally downloaded from numerous different electronic devices containing tens of thousands of images plus hundreds of videos. But by the way, I said 6 years from 2016. He's free right now. Huzzah. Yeah. Yeah. Needless to say, you can't really honor what Gerard did now, can you? But again, that's where the problem lies. Gerard made Jon Stewart with that comic run, created so much of what made Jon Stewart Jon Stewart. If you want to make a story with Jon Stewart and make fans like him, you'll have to use the work that Gerard made to base it off of, which kinda gets mucky. So, John in the comics is sort of stuck in limbo. Unlike all this, there's no real link you can use that doesn't link back to Gerard. Why? Because again, blaxploitation. Jon Stewart's whole thing before Gerard got his hands on him was that he was angry and black, because white comic writers seem to think that's what black people would be. Angry and black. Gerard made Jon what Jon is, which sucks, and why he's lost the limelight for so long. But hey, it's not like people aren't trying. The new Green Lantern runs feature Jon Stewart a lot more, and he's getting his character development back, which is nice. And James Gunn is also having him lead the Lanterns TV show. So, maybe he can pull free of the death grip that Gerard seemed to have on him for the last few years. Who knows? But I have high hopes for Lanterns because, my god, this man needs justice to be brought to him. He hasn't been relevant since the cartoon series. Give him something so I can enjoy watching him without feeling icky again. We need more than just 5 seasons of the Justice League. In fact, make another 10 more seasons of Justice League Unlimited, please. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe if you did. I'll be back with something else. Check out some other videos if you want, and until then, this is Captain Bill signing off. See ya.